Moses took half of the blood and put it in large bowls. The other half he splashed on the altar. Taking the book of the covenant, he read it aloud to the people, who answered, "All that the Lord has said, we will hear and do." Then he took the blood and splashed it on the people, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant which the Lord has made with you according to these words." I think stories of people coming from different places that come together in one community, in one brotherhood, in one group with a special purpose, are central to our imagination. It goes all the way back to the Greek story of Jason and the Argonauts, and various adventure stories going all the way up to today. It's also key to a lot of comedies, particularly ensemble comedies, where you just kind of want to sit around with the people and hear them banter back and forth, knowing that they're held together by a special bond. The people in the desert, they're not really held together by anything other than Moses and other than God that's led them into the desert out of slavery. They still are not one people. They still have great disagreements with each other and rivalries. And yet this ritual in the desert is what makes them one people. When we talk about sacrifice, we first think about Lent usually. We think about, oh my gosh, what am I going to give up for Lent? Particularly if we're good and devout, we think about giving up something that will hurt. But that's not what sacrifice is about. Sacrifice is about much more than that. There are three parts of a sacrifice. The first part is the offering. It's something central to our lives. It's something essential. We offer the best, not the leftovers. The second part is the transformation of the offering, where the offering crosses the boundary between life and death, where the offering crosses the boundary between our world and the world, the universe of God. And then the third part is a communion, where the offering returns and all share from it. In ritual offerings where an animal was sacrificed, usually that meant that everyone shared of the meat of the offering in a ritual meal. The offering goes to God and then returns from God. This sacrifice is more than just giving something up. This offering to God is communication. And seeing sacrifice as communication is a key point in this chapter of In Water and in Blood. The blood of the sacrifice offers people who are refugees, bound by a distant common heritage, bound together by common servitude, by common slavery, by common bondage. It marks them for something new. In a land where death seems to reign, blood is a promise of new life and new hope. Blood is the mark these people carry as a reminder of the God who leads them, of the God who saves them. As precious blood people today, we are called to stand with people on the margins. We're called to stand with the hopeless, with the oppressed, with those who feel bound, with those who are homeless. The blood of Christ calls us to stand on the margins, just as God stood with the ancient people of Israel in the desert. This story, this covenant, celebrates the law of God. Now, the old Hebrew word Torah can be described in two ways. It can be described as law as we know it. It's definitely law about keeping peace in society, but it's also about guidance. When we think about God's guidance in our everyday life, we come across something very exciting. So it is more than just about establishing a legal code and establishing a way to make rulings about stuff. It's about how we live together as people of the covenant. The blood marks out a boundary. It's a celebration in the midst of chaos of order. It's a celebration in the midst of death, of life. It's a celebration of those within chaos and death, moving toward genuine peace, moving toward God's promised land. So we who live the spirituality of the blood are called to be with those who suffer, to be with those seeking justice, to be with those seeking peace, to be on a journey that moves closer to the fullness of God's kingdom. There's another thing that the blood calls us to in this story, and that is to recognize individual dignity. Father Schreiter says, if individuals are not special to someone, if they do not belong somewhere, if they are never acknowledged, their lives begin to fragment and dissipate. People who are diminished, people who are beat down, are in danger of giving up hope. And people who give up hope are capable of many, many awful things. They are easily swept up in the force of disorder. They easily become tools for those that want to undermine society. We've seen it in the past, we see it even today. Covenant makes these former slaves important to God. The blood sacrificed marks them as a family because they all have this marking of blood. It's a shared vision of life and purpose. The blood makes them part of a larger whole that carries from one generation to the next. They are important to one another and to God. And that makes a big difference. Covenant is the next thing we need to consider, because this is an establishment of a covenant. This is this establishment of a covenant just as much as Christ's crucifixion establishes our covenant with God. As Father Schreiter says, blood becomes the bond that holds the world together, built upon God's pledge to stay with us. You will be my people, and I will be your God. We are given a place to be, a home, when we seem surrounded by only the endless desert with its predators. That covenant bond, sealed in blood, holds the world together. How does the blood of Christ hold the world together today? That's a question for us as Christians. That's a question for us who follow the spirituality of the blood. We are called to remember the covenant. We are called to remember that God leads us, God guides us, God has claimed us and marked us as his own. And that gives us value. That gives us purpose. That calls us to live in right relationship with each other and in right relationship with all creation. There's more we can say about this chapter of In Water and in Blood, and will be said soon. Next Tuesday, we're going to release a video here at this very same place where we're going to expand on some of the things I talked about here. I'll be joined by a couple of other folks, one person very familiar to you all, and somebody new to us, new to our spirituality. Very excited about this conversation. And you can join the conversation as well. please feel free to leave comments in the comments section below, or to contact us if you have something more extensive to say, or if you have an insight that you think we need to be aware of. So in the meantime, may God bless you, may God give you peace, and may we all find redemption in the precious blood of Christ.